Oh, here we go. Oh boy. You can tell it's Friday, everybody. This happens. Try to get this fucker started. Well, anyway, welcome now, Friday night. Uh, about 40 minutes or so away from watching the Cavs, but I'm not going to talk about it. Here's the deal. This video, not going to talk about the Cavs. Not going to talk about the Redskins fucking up, which is probably what will happen Sunday against Miami. Not going to talk about, uh, you know, the NBA just pissing away their season. I'm not going to talk about that. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to do one small item. I'm going to do one small item before I get to what I really want to talk about. Small item is this. By now, I think everybody knows the story of WILSON Ramos, kidnapped at his home in Venezuela. This is now day 3. This was Wednesday night when it happened. So we're now on day 3. We're no closer to where they were on Wednesday. Supposedly, the Venezuelan authorities believe they have something approximating a suspect. They won't name anybody. They're just going by composites and what have you. So whatever the case may be, I'm just going to, I'll say it at the end of the video, but I'll do this right now. If nothing else, free WILSON Ramos. That's what you're going to hear. And again, as I say, I'll say that at the end of the video, or at the end of this one. But what I want to do is the big story of the week. And I don't think I really have to tell any of you what it is. Here are my observations. For anybody, and I don't care who you are, to stand there and ram your dick up a 10-year-old boy's ass is beyond moral reprehension. There are words I can't even begin to describe for that. And this fucking scumbag, Jerry Sandusky, if the authorities in Pennsylvania don't lock this fucker up for the rest of his natural life, you got a problem. You got a major problem. For this shit to have gone on almost 15 years that anybody's aware, and now I'm going to stand here and tell you this is the tip of the iceberg. I guarantee you in the coming weeks you're going to hear stories that'll go back farther than, say, 1998. And it's going to go a little farther back. You know, you can start to hear these stories about middle-aged men who are going to come forward and say, you know what, I got rammed up the ass. It's going to come, folks. That alone would be enough to raise anybody's anger, contempt, disgust. But it goes farther than that. It goes a lot farther. Grand jury testimony that was done in 2002, which came to light, I think, a week ago tomorrow. And you find out there was an incident in 2002, which, as I said, you know, is a 10-year-old boy gets rammed up the ass. And there's a witness. There's a witness that says that Jerry Sandusky rammed his dick up a 10-year-old boy's ass. And this is where you get into Mike McCreary, who at the time was a graduate assistant. Now he's an assistant coach at Penn State. I'll get to him in a moment. But it's the amazing thing is, and you think of this incident, nobody called the Penn State campus police. They didn't call the State College, Pennsylvania police. They didn't call the Pennsylvania State Police. They didn't call, I don't think there's the Pennsylvania Bureau of Investigation or whatever it is. Nobody called child welfare services or protective services. None of those people were called. Not by this dickwad, Mike McCreary. Mike McCreary. No, the first call he makes is to his daddy, who, if I think correctly, was on the Penn State staff then, or had been once upon a time. He calls his daddy, and then he decides to call Joe Paterno. Now, to Joe Pa's credit, he did the ethical thing in alerting the athletic department. He did the ethical thing. The moral responsibility is sadly lacking. When this grand jury thing came out last Saturday and the shit hit the fan, everybody started screaming. They said, Joe Pa's got to go. And I thought to myself, no, you should at least afford him the dignity to at least maybe coach this game Saturday against Nebraska, if nothing else. But allow him the dignity to finish out his coaching career on his terms. Because believe me, the only way they would have gotten Joe Pa out of Penn State was feet first. No, the Board of Trustees at Penn State said, we're not even going to afford you that dignity. And it's how they did this on Wednesday. This is how they did it. They didn't call Joe Paterno to their office or call him wherever they were and tell him up front, that we can't let you coach anymore. They didn't even do that. They didn't have the common decency for that. Oh no. No, apparently what happened was one of the trustees stands there, hands this envelope to Joe Pa, says, open this envelope, call the number that's in this envelope. He calls the number, and right then and there is where the Board of Trustees says, bye-bye, Joe Pa. Mm-mm. You don't do a dog like that. I'm serious. You don't even do a dog like that. So you can understand what happened Wednesday night where, the students made the valid attempt to behave peaceably. But, this is being a college campus, some numbnuts decide to get loaded up. They get moved up. Next thing you know, you're turning over a TV news van. But it still does not make it right, the way you treated the man. I mean, I understand, and even he had said, like Wednesday afternoon, he said, look, I'll resign. If nothing else, just let me finish out this coaching run, if we go to a bowl game, whatever, and I'll resign. You don't know. But I've just been going back and forth the last couple of days on this. And I have to keep thinking, anybody that was playing at Penn State, if we go back to these allegations of like 1998, if we go back to whoever was playing at Penn State then and up to, including now the current team, you got to think somebody knew something. And sadly, that means I've got to, and sadly, it means I have to bring in LeVar Arrington on this. I mean, okay, yeah, the guy's working radio in D.C., but, you had to know because this jack off, Jerry Sandusky, was, well, one time, was as an assistant, he was not, he headed up this thing, I hope I get this right, second, I can't think what the hell it's called on it, Second Life or whatever this thing was that Jerry Sandusky was running. I think they called it Second Life, I'm not sure. But anyway, he was running this thing, out using the locker rooms, all the training facilities at Penn State. So you had to think somebody saw something You know, any of these players back in the 90s and through the audience and up till now, you know they had to have seen something. The players had to have seen something. Coaches had to have seen this. Somebody had to. And yet you stayed silent. And I've gone back and forth in this, and I still cannot help but believe that the final responsibility for all of this lies with the NCAA because you put the almighty dollar ahead of morality, ahead of ethics, ahead of common sense or common decency. The NCAA, in their pursuit of the almighty dollar, because they want that money from the networks and the cable networks and what have you, they smell that money. And so what you've done is you've trampled morality, ethics, common decency. That's where the final fault is going to lie. Uh, I just don't know what else I can say about this. I wish I could say something more, but I can't. I'm just too fucking disgusted. As sure everybody else is. You never thought you'd find anything that would overshadow. I mean, because you have to understand, this is not a sports story. It's not even a news story. It's not. I don't even think you could call it a human interest story. This is the story about common decency, about behavior or behavioral patterns. I just don't know. I honestly, truly don't know. So that's it, gang. Not the usual adios, motherfuckers, and things I do here at the end. I don't think I'd be in the mood for it. So that's pretty much it. I'll add one final little tidbit. I think the last video I did, I talked about NASCAR and how Kyle Busch fucked up. I'm done with this dickwad. It's the sooner that JD Gibbs and the people at Joe Gibbs Racing get rid of this fucked, the happier I'll be. And I'm just going to leave it at that. I've already pissed off the people at M&M's. They won't sponsor the car now for the remaining 2 races. You know, so this is what happens. When you stand there and try and take a guy out at 100 miles an hour, taking a guy out at 100 miles, it's not even so much under caution, but they were going 100 miles an hour as the caution comes out, and you do this. I said, you talk about behavioral fuck-ups, you know, but that's where we are with that. So I'll just leave all of you with that and my comments on the whole Joe Boss situation. All I can tell you is it's going to be a circus tomorrow with that game. They're in Happy Valley because they're playing Nebraska. It's just going to be a circus. And you realize ESPN's going to find some way to televise the game. Well, they'll find some way. If they don't do it, the Big Ten Network might. All I'm going to say is this is a circus. And I'm warranted, an unwarranted and unneeded circus, but circus nonetheless. So that's it, gang. Enjoy your weekend. And as I said at the start of this thing, free Wilson Ramos. Free Wilson Ramos. And just take this all over the world. I hope people, I don't even know if anybody ever watches me with this channel. I don't even know if they watch me there in Central and South America. But if you are, if you're watching me somewhere in Venezuela, I'm going to tell you this right now. Why? Why kidnap Wilson Ramos? Why? I leave you all with that question. Why? I'm done, folks.
11 for the 1956 pennant-winning Dodgers. Newcomb is one of the 20 Rookie of the Year award winners to also win an MVP award. While that may be an exclusive club, most Rookie of the Year winners, 101 of 128, or 79%, have made an All-Star team at some point in their career.
I'm sorry,
33
folks.
of the 128
Last minute of
award
this
winners
thing.
have been pitchers, including 4 of the last 6 in the